The Deputy Prime Minister Barnaby Joyce says he offered his resignation to the Prime Minister after a text message he wrote while a backbencher, calling him a hypocrite and a liar, was made public. The text message was written in the wake of former Liberal staffer Brittany Higgins alleging she had been raped by a fellow staffer in a ministerial office. Let's bring in our political reporter Matthew Doran in Canberra for analysis on this now. Good morning to you, Matt. Can you take us through how this text came out?
Kath, good morning. This is a text that was shared to Brittany Higgins last year when Barnaby Joyce was still a backbencher. He had sent the message via a third party and it was then passed on to her, and she made the decision to release it initially to 9 newspapers who published this story first last night because Barnaby Joyce had made comments earlier this week about other text messages which had cast a fairly free and frank character assessment of the Prime Minister, an anonymous federal cabinet minister, and the then New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian sending messages between each other where Scott Morrison was described as a horrible person. Brittany Higgins decided to then release this text message from Barnaby Joyce. Now I want to read part of this text message from you, or all of the text message from you, so you can get the exact context. So Barnaby Joyce sent this message to this third party saying, "Tell Brittany Higgins I and Scott, he is Scott to me until I have to recognise his office, don't get along. He is a hypocrite and a liar from my observations, and that is over a long time." He goes on to say, "I've never trusted him and I dislike how he earnestly rearranges the truth to a lie." Now this text message, as Barnaby Joyce has said this morning, was sent back in March 2021. At the time, he was a backbencher. He was the member for New England. He was not the Nationals leader. He was not the Deputy Prime Minister or the Infrastructure Minister. That, of course, came later in the year after he launched a leadership challenge against Michael McCormack. And Barnaby Joyce has said that his views of Scott Morrison at the time differed greatly to now. He's since had the opportunity to work closely with the Prime Minister, and he says his views back in March 2021 were quite different to those he holds now. He has apologised to the Prime Minister, something the Prime Minister has accepted. Here's how Barnaby Joyce explained the last couple of days' events.
When it came to light a couple of days ago, I rang the Prime Minister immediately. I apologised. He accepted my apology. I offered my resignation, and he did not accept my resignation. And that in itself is a statement of a person of greater character. That is not one of a person of any form of vindictiveness or pique or a sense of retribution.
So Matthew, just how big is this going to get? Do you expect it to be a distraction, or will it be more damaging for the Prime Minister and the government more broadly?
Certainly a distraction at the very least, Catherine, considering that we are just days away from federal parliament beginning its sittings for 2022, albeit a very condensed sitting calendar ahead of when we're expecting the Prime Minister to call an election sometime after the early budget in April. And you can bet that the Labor Party will make as much as they possibly can out of this, not just the Labor Party, but also the other parties in federal parliament, casting doubt on Scott Morrison's suitability to remain Prime Minister, his trustworthiness, questioning his character as the leader of this nation as we lead into that must-win and very closely contested election campaign in the next couple of months. The Deputy Prime Minister Barnaby Joyce is trying to paint this as something where his views have shifted because he's now in a close working relationship with Scott Morrison. That may well be fair, but it is worth pointing out while they haven't necessarily worked as Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister until the last couple of months or so, they were ministers together in the Abbott and Turnbull governments. They have sat around the cabinet table before, so they have had a working relationship in the past. Obviously, Barnaby Joyce saying that has now solidified, and his views of Scott Morrison are much more favourable than they used to be. But this will be one hell of a distraction when we lead into federal parliament next week. We're expecting to hear from the opposition leader, Anthony Albanese, this morning, commenting on this matter. Greg Hunt, the health minister, was very quick to spring to the defence of the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister. He says Barnaby Joyce's apology should be accepted and that everyone should move on, and that the Prime Minister is the right man to lead the coalition to the next election.